What's up guys, and welcome to the channel. It's Ioana here, founder and CEO of Supwell. Today I wanted to do a quick comparison of two of my favorite shoes in the rotation right now, these lightweight, non-plated up-tempo shoes. This is a category that I've really been loving as I'm restructuring my training to prioritize building strength and not just building speed, where I was leaning heavily on those plated shoes, but also building out and rounding out all those muscles that it takes to run in those lower legs. So there's two shoes that I've been leaning on heavily to do that are the Hoka Mach 5 and the New Balance Fuel Cell Rebel V3. Let's get into it. So the Hoka Mach 5 is the non-plated up-tempo daily trainer or speed shoe from Hoka. It has these two foams in here, a supercritical EVA and then a standard EVA. There's no outsole on the bottom, which saves some weight, and it's using this Creel Jacquard upper. In the other corner here, we have the New Balance Fuel Cell Rebel V3. This one has an engineered mesh upper. It's using a full fuel cell midsole, no plate of course, and the bottom does have a really solid covering of rubber. A big difference between the two so far has been the ride. The Hoka Mach 5 has more of a rolling, rockered, smooth, and cushioned ride, where even though it doesn't have a plate, I am feeling more of that help when I'm running along. If you just look at this front here, you can see a pretty good rocker, and it's not as flexible as the Rebel V3, which I can completely fold in on itself. The Mach 5, I can fold it, but it's giving me a bit more feedback and pop. So this one is definitely gonna have a bit more rigidity through the platform. This one is gonna feel a bit more flexible. Another big difference between these two is the toe box. Hoka is notoriously narrow up here, especially in these speed-oriented models, whereas the New Balance is a bit more roomy. So these are a slightly different size. I think this one is about a half size bigger than the Hoka Mach 5, but in any Hoka I've tried, the fit has been a bit odd. It is kind of tight up here in the toe box. It's not as tight as something like a Saucony, but that's something to be mindful of if you are a narrow-footed runner. I have taken both of these out on long runs. I did a 16-mile long run up in the Cape with the Mach 5. It was pretty hilly and hot, and I did a 16-mile long run on the treadmill with the Fuel Cell Rebel V3, so not exactly the same conditions, but both out there for 2 miles on my feet. Both of them were similar in that I wouldn't love taking these more than a half marathon, more than 13 miles. At the end of those efforts, I was feeling like I wanted a bit more cushion, but that is the reason why I'm going for shoes like this over those max cushion plated shoes that I'd been running in. So I just finished a block of training where I did 16 straight weeks of 16-mile long runs, and for most of those runs, I was in either the Saucony Endorphin Speed 3 or the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3, and I didn't feel like I needed any more cushion or support at the end of those runs. With these, and transitioning now to these lower, lightweight, less cushioned shoes, I am feeling at the end of those long runs like I would want a bit more support, but that's what I'm trying to work on in my training. So if you're not trying to work on that in your training, if you just want a smooth and cushioned ride to help you hit those 2-hour long runs during marathon training with ease, take some of the burden off your legs, I would suggest going for a more cushioned ride than either of these provide. If you do like that soft and bouncy feeling that you're gonna get out of the Rebel V3, I would suggest the Saucony Triumph as a long run shoe. And if you like that smooth and responsive feeling that you're getting out of the Mach 5, I would suggest either the Saucony Endorphin Shift 3 or something like the Brooks Hyperion Max. You could even go with a Nike Invincible. It's not gonna be as lightweight as this, but it is gonna be nice and smooth for those longer runs. All right, now this is kind of the elephant in the room with these, but the big difference is gonna be out around here. Now these have a little bit different wear on them. The Hoka has about 80 to 90 miles and the Rebel V3 has about 50 to 60, but they still are under that 100-mile range in both of them. And you're gonna see this Hoka is completely worn through. The tread on the back here is all the way smoothed out. If we take a look at it at another platform of the shoe, you see that it used to have these little grooves and ridges, and on the back it's completely smoothed out. The Rebel, on the other hand, this one still has lots of life left. It is starting to get some wear through the first first few dozen miles that I've put on it, but a bunch of commenters in the last video I posted about this said that this wear tends to stop at around 150 miles and that this is pretty durable rubber. So I'm hopeful that I can take this one to 300 plus miles. I'll be lucky if I get 220 miles out of this without feeling like it's giving up on me. That's my question of the day, actually. Guys, I would love to know in the comments, when do you know when it's time to retire your shoes? Because in shoes like this where there's no outsole rubber, it might be hard to tell when to retire the shoe because I'm at 80 miles and it's completely worn down. So how do you know when it's time to retire your shoe? Do you go by how it feels in your legs? Do you go by a certain mileage number? Let me know in the comments. Now, these were both pretty good to run in straight out of the box. I didn't have any break-in period. I will say the Mach 5 did feel better in the first 50 miles, whereas I think this one is starting to improve after 50 miles. So while there wasn't necessarily a break-in, I do think that this supercritical EVA ProFly Plus foam in here does have a finite life. I'm 6'2" and 160 pounds with a relatively low cadence. I run at about 165, so that means I'm putting more force per minute and more force per run into my stride than probably a lot of you other runners. Take with that what you will, but I do think this is starting to lose a little bit of that shine in that first 100 miles, whereas it feels like the Rebel V3 is just warming up. All right, guys, there you have it. That is the comparison of the Hoka Mach 5 and the New Balance Rebel V3. Let me know in the comments if you've tried either of these shoes and what you think. As always, thank you for liking and subscribing, and I'll make sure to keep you up to date on the latest and greatest in the world of performance running.